I'm going to tell you something about my life. My name is Florence Nightingale. I was born in the year 1820 in Italy, and named after a famous city there, but I grew up in England in a large country house. The story I will tell you starts when I was still a girl, when I began to imagine the life I could lead. When I got hold of the idea that I might do something with my life, and I wouldn't let it go. I grew up with my head in books, and over time I formed a very clear idea of what it was that I wanted to do. What I wanted to do was work, and the work I wanted to do was nursing. My family didn't approve. What they expected of me, all they thought I should aim for in my life, was to find a respectable man to marry me. I knew that being a wife and mother would never be enough. I had this idea that I would do something with my life, and I wouldn't let it go. I stuck to my books and refused to give in. I would not change my course. At that time, nurses got no training at all, but I had other ideas. So long as my father refused to let me work, I stuck to my books, refining my ideas about how I would teach nurses to help the sick. Eventually, I got the chance that all these years I'd been waiting for. I was asked to train a team of nurses for work in the Crimea, a place far away where there was a war.
And 1, 2.
There was a hospital there near the battlefield where injured soldiers were brought in, but were rarely getting better.
6, 7, 8.
I trained my nurses in fundamental principles of cleanliness and hygiene. I wanted them neat and orderly and everything just so. Soon we were packed and ready to leave for a war that had until now seemed so far away, in a country most of them had never even heard of. Even I had a little apprehension, not so much for what we might find, but because I knew this was my chance to prove my worth as a nurse. The journey to Scutari in Turkey took several weeks. We arrived, and it was hot. The hospital itself was in the shell of an old army fort close to the battlefield. As we walked towards it, I didn't quite know what we'd find. Whatever we had imagined, this was worse. The first thing to hit you was the smell. The stench of sickness and filth. Soldiers lay on the floor in pools of blood. Undressed wounds were covered in flies. Sheets, such as there were crawling with lice and maggots. It was a hell on earth. I knew in an instant what needed to be done. First, I had to persuade the doctor to let us get to work. I knew what I wanted to do, and I wouldn't let it go. He resisted, but in the end, he said that things had got so bad, he was willing to let me try. was my chance to prove what I believed were the first principles of good nursing: cleanliness and hygiene. I set my nurses to cleaning every inch, every crevice, every corner of the place. First, we swept. I believed that when the wounded came to us, they should expect not dirt and disease, but good food and clean sheets and fresh air and the chance for nature to heal their wounds. Then, we scrubbed. That way, we would be in charge, order would prevail, and health could be restored. I wouldn't let my nurses rest until the place was spotless. I was strict with them, and I suspect they found me rather stern. Finally, we brought in fresh sheets. And once clean, the hospital would stay clean. This was how I'd imagined it. Clean and hygienic and everything in its place. Now, we could concentrate on tending to the soldiers' wounds and nursing them back to health. The change in the hospital was immediate. I may have been stern with the nurses, but at night, I walked amongst the soldiers on the wards. I would sit with them if they wanted, or read to them, or take their hand if they called out. After all, it was for them that we were there at all, and I so wanted each of them to get better. Because of my lantern and my nightly rounds, they started to call me the Lady of the Lamp. Soon we were rewarded for all our efforts. Soldiers that would have died before were getting better, and some were able to leave their beds. It gave me such satisfaction to watch them leave. I'd never felt more complete. After the war ended, I stayed until every last soldier was well enough to leave. When I got back to England, I was astonished to find that I was famous. Not only were people talking about my work, but there was a trust fund that had been set up in my honour. It was a good deal of money, and I used it to start up the first ever nurses' training school in London. What I did changed nursing for good. It became a real profession with strict principles and standards, and all the better for the health of the entire nation. As a girl, I had decided that I would do something with my life. I'm glad that I took hold of that idea and I never let it go.